It all happened on Saturday night, May 27th, at JFK International Airport in New York, when a woman named Samantha Vincent was unjustly kicked out of an airplane because of her color, after being prevented by one of the flight attendants from storing her backpack in the overhead compartment, claiming there was no more space. Samantha tried to resolve the issue with the help of some passengers, but was eventually forced to leave the plane due to causing widespread disruption, according to the airline's statement. However, the incident didn't go unnoticed, and they had no idea what Samantha was capable of. Before the moment she was kicked out of the plane, Samantha had already experienced an uncomfortable situation when checking in her luggage. An airline employee said she needed to check all her baggage because there was no more space on the plane. However, one of the backpacks needed to stay with her as it contained her laptop, which could be shattered if checked in. Despite her attempts to explain, they insisted she wouldn't be able to store anything in the plane's overhead compartment, and it took them a while to accept that it wasn't an option. This was the first unpleasant situation she had to deal with that night. With her backpack, Samantha finally boarded the plane, believing she would have at least a few peaceful hours until reaching her destination, but that wasn't the case. As soon as she entered, Samantha looked for a place to put her backpack, but was stopped by a flight attendant. "Ma'am, there's no more space for your backpack. We recommend that you check it in, as the overhead compartment is full." "Oh, yes, I explained before boarding why I couldn't check in my backpack. My laptop would be shattered. I don't think it should be difficult to find space. It's not a large backpack," Samantha replied politely. The flight attendant simply turned around and walked away without responding, leaving Samantha talking to herself. Samantha found it odd, but it wasn't the first time she had been treated disdainfully for no apparent reason, and she knew very well why. She chose to try to ignore it at that moment, in order to find a place for the backpack and wait for takeoff. An elderly couple noticed Samantha's difficulty and promptly offered to help her. "Here, dear, near our things. It should fit. We just have to adjust it, and it'll fit," the elderly woman said. In less than 3 minutes, the couple was able to easily find space for Samantha's things. She thanked them for their kindness and promptly took her seat. Some time passed, and an hour had passed since Samantha found a place for her backpack. After another hour, a flight attendant approached her and said, "If you don't check your backpack, we will land at the connecting airport and you won't be able to board the next flight. These are the captain's orders. I suggest you do it immediately to avoid consequences. You're the one delaying the departure." Observing what was really happening, Samantha provoked the flight attendant in a calm tone. "Can you explain to me why I'm forced to check my luggage? The backpack has been stored perfectly for 2 hours. I'm not the one delaying the departure." The flight attendant looked ahead, and 3 men approached Samantha to remove her from the flight, without giving any explanation for their approach. But no one knew that Samantha was a teacher and an expert in education, culture, and ethnic racial relations. She had a degree in international relations and was extremely committed to fighting discrimination and racism. That situation was a clear example of the kind of attitude she fought against, and she wouldn't accept it silently. Before they could touch Samantha, she raised her voice and started explaining what was happening for all the passengers to hear. "I want to explain to everyone here what they're doing to me. They want to kick me out of this plane, claiming that I have to check my luggage that is perfectly stored in the overhead compartment. Thanks to this kind couple here who helped me store it in just 3 minutes. The flight attendants didn't lift a finger to help me, and they're saying that the flight is delayed because of me, even though the backpack has been stored for over an hour, and still the flight hasn't taken off. And now they've sent 3 men and want to prevent me from traveling without explaining why. Do you agree with this?" Numerous passengers could be heard expressing their outrage at the employee's actions. They said that if I don't leave this flight, they'll make everyone else leave because I'm disobeying orders and committing a crime. I want someone to tell me what crime I'm committing, but nobody explains anything to me. Samantha added. Then one of the flight attendants impatiently shouted, aggressively trying to grab Samantha's arm. "Now you have to defend yourself outside, ma'am." Samantha pulled her arm back, moving away from the security guard. "Are you going to assault me? You can't do that. I have my rights." Immediately, other passengers stood up, preventing the security guard from getting closer to Samantha. Some people threatened to leave the flight with Samantha, while the employees and security guards continued to try to remove her almost by force. That's when some FBI agents were called in, and the situation became even more absurd. Being a compassionate person and seeing the empathy that many unknown passengers had for her, she chose to leave on her own to avoid the cancellation of everyone's trip. She took her things from the overhead compartment, and amidst shouts of revolt against the employees' actions, she exited the plane. Samantha remained silent all the way until she reached the rest of her luggage already waiting for her in the airport lounge. When she looked around, she found herself alone. There were no airline staff members left, and she felt a mix of sadness and anger. Unfortunately, she had been through similar situations before, but she had never felt so humiliated in her life. It was unacceptable, and no one could have anticipated what Samantha did after that day to try to prevent that from happening to others. Using all the resources she had acquired throughout her professional and academic life, and gathering friends from the legal field, Samantha was not only willing to sue the airline for racial intolerance, but also to expose the incident on social media so that a larger audience would become aware of the criminal conduct endorsed by the airline. Initially, Samantha wrote a concise yet powerful text explaining the episode she experienced on the plane, stating her intention to resolve the case legally, and she planned to release a video statement the following day directed at the airline and people with similar worldview. However, she was presented with something even better. The text circulated widely after being shared by numerous friends and acquaintances until it reached Elliot, one of the passengers who was on the flight. He sent a message to Samantha saying that he had recorded a video of the staff members and police officers' approach and that he wanted to send it to her to use as she pleased. Samantha thanked him, and upon watching the video, she concluded that it was exactly what she needed to win the case and publicly expose the airline. As soon as she posted the video, it quickly went viral, reaching newspapers, magazines, and television. It showed exactly what Samantha had described in her text, all the aggressive words and actions without any plausible reason. Within a short time, Samantha's phone was flooded with messages from people expressing solidarity and media outlets that were interested in interviewing her to discuss the case. She seized the opportunity to express what was missing on a national scale, making her indignation clear. In a live interview, she said, looking into the camera, "This dangerous perception of the Black population, that Black people are potentially dangerous, potentially disturbing the peace, is deplorable and should be debated and fought against by each one of us, regardless of who we are. We know that structural racism exists in our society. It permeates all of our relationships, and it requires everyone's participation. But only the law can clearly state that in the current situation," Samantha reflected. After that, the airline tried to lie about the reason for their actions, claiming that Samantha's luggage was in a place that obstructed the passage. They stated that on those occasions, the passenger is asked to relocate it, but she refused to do so. They could have lied all they wanted, but the evidence and witnesses guaranteed Samantha's win. In the end, after a period of legal proceedings, the airline lost the lawsuit and was obliged to pay Samantha $4.4 million for committing racial discrimination and emotional abuse. Samantha Vincent emerged victorious from this battle. However, the fight against racism and all forms of discrimination continues, and it requires all of us to stand together so that human rights apply to everyone and not just a privileged few. If you know any similar story, write about it in the comments. Like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more fantastic stories.